God will care for the believers. It was approaching dusk, and after the young monk gave a verbal blessing to the middle-aged man and woman at the door, he turned and left. God will care for the believers. He hurriedly replied, watching the monks who had left. The middle-aged man and women closed the door and handed the holy bread distributed by the monks to their nephew, Adam, and daughter Lena, while saying, "I'm going to cook dinner. There is cured meat today." "That's great, Aunt Maggie." Adam smiled extremely happily, and his happy smile can undoubtedly infect other people and make him feel happy. Looking at his uncles and aunts who were busy with life, Adam still stuffed the holy bread in his hand into his mouth, feeling the burning pain. We must find a way to leave the kingdom of Shenshianian. Adam endured the pain and ate all the remaining holy bread in his hand, and couldn't help but start to think about it. The holy bread is a white bread baked by the monks of the Holy Sound Church with holy water and wheat flour. It is not special in itself, but because the holy water has been blessed by the monks of the church, it has a touch of holy power. Therefore, evil can be eliminated. Adam happened to be in the midst of this eliminated evil. Adam's original name was not Adam Boku, nor did he use the name Nether Riggs, but a name that was incompatible with this world. It's been 13 years since I came to this world unknowingly. Adam flashed such an idea. He was originally an ordinary person from another world. When he drove into a big black hole that appeared out of thin air while getting off work, he was reincarnated into this world, a world with magical arts, magic, and alien creatures. Unfortunately, he was reincarnated into a different creature, a werewolf, that was rejected by most human forces. The so-called alien creatures are actually not much different from humans, but they are different from ordinary people in some places, so they are called alien races, and werewolves are one of them. The biggest difference between werewolves and humans is that most werewolves will get out of control on a full moon night and grow sharp teeth like a giant wolf standing up, and most of them will lose their minds, become lethargic, and wantonly hunt the surrounding life. Fortunately, Adam is one of the few. He can control his transformation, and the transformation can also suppress his desire to kill and maintain a certain level of sanity. This involves the innate and acquired differences of werewolves. Innate werewolves are just like humans, born from werewolf couples. This kind of werewolf is called a purebred werewolf, and the werewolves of the future can be changed by infection, cursing, magic, etc. Adam is a semi-purebred werewolf. His biological father is a werewolf. It is precisely because he is a semi-purebred werewolf that Adam can hide in the border city of Roha in the kingdom of Shenshianian. As long as he does not transform, he is no different from humans. The kingdom of Shenshianian is a kingdom of the church. There are a large number of church monks here, and for various reasons, no matter which church it is the worst enemy of the Fae. There is a team dedicated to hunting and killing the life of the Fae. Once the Fae is caught by the church, it will either be burned to death, hanged, or detained to death. In short, most of them have only one result: death. Therefore, Adam's purpose was to pass through the walls of Roha and go to the opposite kingdom of Lakan, where it is said that the living environment of the Fae is much better. Adam had already inquired. The wilderness of this world is full of monsters. In addition to crossing the border wall, the danger between the two countries is much greater. He currently lives in Baku's house. He is nominally the nephew of the male owner of this house, Alexis Boku. In fact, there is no blood relationship between them. The real Adam had already died in the hands of the robbers. It was a young man who was not too unsuspecting. Because his parents died of illness, he came to Roha and defected to his uncle. When Adam first met the real Adam, he learned most of his information without even saying a word. And the second time he saw each other, the unsuspecting teenager had become a corpse in the hands of the robber. After witnessing all this, Adam understood that he needed an identity, so he helped the true Adam avenge him. After destroying his mouth, by the way, he came to Roha City as Adam, Brother Adam. The cry caused Adam to turn around and saw a 7 or 8-year-old girl running over at a trot, hugging Adam's legs, raising her head and looking at Adam with a pair of eyes. "Have you finished your holy bread?" Lena Boku, the daughter of Alexis and Adam's nominal sister, has been with her for half a month and has made her trust herself extremely much. "It's already finished. Will you keep it for Lena next time?" Adam smiled and touched her little head, made a mess of the little girl's hair, and then braided her again. He doesn't like to eat the holy bread that has no taste and even causes him pain, but he must give other people a sufficiently normal impression in order not to expose himself. Seeing Lena happily threw herself into her mother's arms and asked if her braids looked good. Adam turned his head, walked to the second floor, and looked at the dusk view of the border city through the window on the second floor. "We have to leave quickly. Early the next morning, Adam went out and started peddling Baku's homemade pickled vegetable cakes and greeted the neighbors around him. The surrounding neighbors also became acquainted with Adam, and one by one they called Adam's name with a smile. Half a month ago, the nephew of the Boku family came to his uncle because his parents died of illness. On the way, his face was stung and swollen by a poisonous hornet. After the swelling subsided during this period of time, he was also a very handsome little brother. Adam was selling pickled vegetable cakes while collecting information. It seemed that his disguise was quite qualified. He was not like the real Adam. Although Alexis hadn't seen his nephew for many years, he still had some impressions. If you look at a complete stranger at first glance, most of them will become suspicious. So Adam deliberately swollen his face. In the past half a month, as Adam's face became thinner little by little, he had enough impressions, which made Alexis not doubt at all from beginning to end. While hawking along the street, he started to step on it and looked at a mansion in the distance with Yuguang. That was his goal. The kingdom of Shenxianian and the kingdom of Lakan are currently in a state of hostility, and the border is not open. It is difficult for ordinary people to get close. If they want to pass through the line of defense of the Roha border wall, they must rely on the power of the nobles. Most of the nobles in the border cities are involved in some smuggling business. Generally speaking, it is almost impossible for a commoner to involve a nobleman in the smuggling business, even if he puts in several years or even more than 10 years of hard work. Their servants are generally passed down from generation to generation, and their children inherit their father's inheritance and serve the nobles for several generations. Only in this way can they gain the trust of the nobles. An outsider, no matter how he proves himself, can't make them trust themselves. However, now there is an opportunity. Behind those robbers is this Baron Mansra. Adam remembered the information he had received from the robbers, and after secretly remembering the topography of this one, he sold it for a while and left. He still needs to make a lot of preparations. Otherwise, both the nobles and the church in the city will be able to deal with him. A werewolf who is still underage. When they returned to Baku's house, neither Alice nor Maggie had yet returned. The Boku family is not wealthy and can barely maintain food and clothing, especially after Adam's arrival. It's time to Adam rubbed Lena's head, who heard the movement and ran over, thinking in his heart that in order not to be suspected, he couldn't behave too much. So Adam said less and did more. And now that he is getting familiar with it, Adam feels that he has been able to act appropriately, without exposing himself, to help the Boku family become a little richer, at least not to be a drag on himself. It's too abrupt to take out the knowledge of the other world, and the world is different. Some things are completely different, and that knowledge is not necessarily useful. Even if it is useful, if it is too beyond this era, it may be regarded as being possessed by the devil and directly put on the gallows? Or is it a related interest, known as a lowly thief who steals the secrets of nobles? Adam knew too well the virtues of the church and some people in this era. Glancing across this not-so-wealthy home, Adam saw a book with a painting on the cover. Maybe I can try to become a painter. Being a painter in this world is still a pretty good way out, especially in religious-related painting. It just so happens that Adam is quite familiar with this aspect. The beasts on the ground shouted that they didn't need God, so God followed it and left his place. The endless light fell, and the starry sky, the bright moon, and the scorching sun appeared in the sky at the same time. The beasts wailed in the light, praying for the return of God. Only after the light cleanses the earth will the gods return, leaving tears for the dead beasts, nourishing the earth and bringing the land back to life. Those tears are mercy. The word of God, the barren age. Adam closed the book in his hand and did not continue reading. He knew exactly what was behind him. He only read this book for the illustrations in this book, limited by printing capabilities. The illustrations in the missionary book, The Word of God, with the same content in each region, are different, and they are generally drawn by the best local painters. Therefore, from this book, it is possible to roughly understand the local level of painting. On the terms of the Boku family, you can't buy any book, so this book was lent to him by the monk yesterday. The monk named Fra is very optimistic about him and thinks that if he goes to the seminary for a period of study, he can become a monk. Adam tactfully said that the tuition fee was not enough and rejected the proposal. Although Friar Fra felt it was a pity, he still lent him the book. Adam seemed to think of some unpleasant experience and couldn't help rubbing his temples. He is extremely insecure now. In his identity in the kingdom of Shenxianian, a country of political and religious unity, he seems to be able to smell the breath of death at any time. He urgently needed strength. For some reason, Adam's understanding of the power system in this world was far inferior to theology. At least in theology, he also mastered some rituals with extraordinary power. These rituals can be used to disguise oneself. Therefore, Adam's current extraordinary abilities are only fighting with the powerful physique brought about by the werewolf transformation. It's okay to bully ordinary robbers. Once you face other extraordinary abilities, the encounter may not be too wonderful, so you still have to be careful when you act tonight. Baron Mansra must have extraordinary abilities. Adam thought of some of the information he had learned. Although he does not understand the extraordinary power system, he is very clear about some other information. As long as it is a nobleman, it must possess extraordinary abilities. But a nobleman who fails to possess extraordinary abilities should be a fake, or a nobleman with impure blood. This kind of nobleman will soon be banned from the name of a nobleman and become a commoner. That Baron Mansra was able to establish a large foundation in Roja City and naturally possessed extraordinary power. It is said that the extraordinary abilities of nobles are related to heraldry. In Adam's original world, nobles also had the so-called heraldry. Heraldry was not only a badge, but also a record of genealogy, reputation, and merits. In this world, heraldry is still power. It's just that the power of heraldry must have a corresponding bloodline in order to be cultivated. So Adam didn't think much about it. Watching the sky darken, Adam greeted Alice and Mary, rubbed Lena's little head, and returned to the attic where he slept. After taking off his coat and lying on the bed listening to the movement downstairs gradually stop, Adam quietly opened the skylight of the attic and listened carefully to the surrounding movement. After there was no abnormality, he began to transform. The moonlight from the skylight shone on Adam's face. The skin is not fair, and the thin face gives people a feeling of perseverance. The black sea looming over the eyes is a scar similar to the symbol of the beast, and the dark pupils have turned into dark red beast pupils in the next blink of an eye. Every muscle and bone of the body are moving, especially the face. The mouth and lips are stretched, the fangs become hideous, the ears become pointed and stand up, and the black hair on the head also turns white in the process. After just a few breaths, a giant wolf with white hair and furry human body appeared in the attic. Feeling of werewolf transformation is very wonderful, and it is difficult for Adam to describe the feeling in detail in words. And this time he transformed. Adam felt a bit more restless. It was due to the restlessness of his bloodline. Adam felt that his bloodline was about to mature. As for what would happen after maturity, he didn't know. Adam bent over to prevent himself from colliding with the roof and making a sound. After transforming, his height changed from 1.5 meters to 1.8 meters. After listening again, Adam quietly jumped out of the attic, jumped down from the roof, hidden in the shadow of the moonlight, and quickly headed towards his destination. The werewolf's ability to transform comes from the bloodline. This bloodline is not just blood, nor is it completely the gene of Adam's previous life, but contains something more mysterious. It's a pity that Adam didn't know how to tap the power of the bloodline, but on the contrary, he seemed more familiar with how to cover up the strangeness of the bloodline. At the moment of landing, Adam's slender nails bounced out, allowing him to grasp the ground tightly. His sturdy body was transformed from extremely moving to extremely quiet in an instant. He hid his body in the shadows, and even his breathing seemed to stop. There is a difference between the transformed Adam and the normal Adam. Although he maintains a certain sanity in the transformed state, his personality and thinking pattern will undergo certain changes. If it is hard to compare, it is the state of sobriety and drunkenness. Adam in the physical state is more cautious, likes to think, and likes to make detailed and comprehensive plans for everything, while Adam in the werewolf state is more like a predator. Unlike ordinary people's inherent impression of werewolves, Adam was indifferent, cunning, and decisive when he was in a werewolf state, with a strong and keen predator instinct. Two people carrying oil lamps walked down the street next to them, but they didn't find Adam hidden in the shadows at all. It only took one swoop to break the neck of any of them, and there would be no chance to use magical skills. Are you finally going to catch that evil guy? Well, hurry up and don't let him run away. The two of them were wearing monk clothes, and they could be determined to be monks from the church. From their conversation, it was not difficult to tell that they had found another evil creature. Adam waited for them to go far in silence, without any more ideas, just hoping that they would not go to Baku's house next time. His body flashed past on the corner of the street, and Adam had already climbed over the courtyard wall. The two fierce big dogs in the yard, after seeing Adam, did not bark wildly, but ran over with their tails wagging extremely close. This should be regarded as Adam's personal talent. After stepping on it a few times and touching it a few times across the courtyard wall, these big dogs became extremely familiar with him and were willing to get close to him, touching the dog's head and letting the two big dogs go back and lie down. Adam quietly climbed up along a wall full of creepers, his sharp claws firmly embedded in the wall. Because there are creepers, there is no need to worry too much about being found. Traces stopped following the window on the second floor. Adam observed the situation in the house. His nose twitched twice, and different smells were read by Adam. Adam, who has transformed into a werewolf state, has become more sensitive to smell. Although he doesn't usually like to use this ability, the environment in most parts of the world is really not very good, and some excessive places can even be called poisonous fog zones. Haven't the lights turned out yet? Looking at the brightly lit room and observing further, he did not plan to contact the Baron today. After arriving here, he lay quietly by the window, sniffing various smells while listening quietly. Intelligence is a very important thing, and the information reflected in some subtleties can allow him to take more initiative in subsequent contacts. After 3 o'clock in the morning, after confirming that all the people in the mansion were resting, Adam quietly entered the house, turned around before leaving, and turned back to the vicinity of Baku's house. After confirming that there were no abnormalities around, he went back through the skylight. He could vaguely hear some noises coming from a distance, but that had nothing to do with him. When he got up in the morning, Adam went to the well to get some water and planned to clean up his body. His sense of smell was too keen, which made him a little neat. When I passed by a certain street with a bucket, I found that a platform there was already full of wood. It seemed that the man failed to escape last night. Later, maybe a bonfire party could be held. There are very few means of entertainment in this world, or there are very few means of entertainment for civilians. After nightfall, they all obediently sleep at home. Usually, Roja City also has a curfew, except for special personnel such as church monks and the defense forces. No one else is allowed to go out after nightfall. Of course, there are a few exceptions. For example, during some special festivals or during the execution of the fire, it will only be open to ordinary people at night. Most people smell the aroma of barbecue in various senses and party in nearby blocks. When Adam went back after filling the water, he heard Maggie calling him. "I'm not going to buy pickled vegetable cakes today. Help me make more meatloaf cakes. I should be able to make a lot of money tonight." The Boku family is not wealthy. The main source of wealth generally comes from pickled vegetable cakes and some woodware made by Alexis. Occasionally, the two have to do some short-term work to subsidize their families. In this kind of era when civilians have exhausted their best to live, and some free time at night is carnival. No one will care who is the one who will be burned to death on the stake. For the more diligent Maggie, the curfew was finally lifted tonight, and it would be easier to sell snacks such as meatloaf to everyone. She didn't care about other things. Adam was a little interested in the people on the crucifixion. After all, they were all people called beasts by the church. He believes that he is not the only Phi who wants to travel from the border wall of Roja to the kingdom of Lakan. So Roja City should hide a lot of Phi. If he can contact them, he may be able to make more choices. Although he has not yet figured out how to contact Adam, I don't know if they will go to visit the fire. Putting the meatloaf into the woven basket, the sky outside was already dark, and Alice and Maggie were ready. Each carried a basket and asked Lena to follow them to the other side of the intersection. There are already many people on the street. They get together in twos and threes, talking and laughing about various gossip and anecdotes in the neighborhood. And the atmosphere is very harmonious. Adam walked all the way carrying a basket and found that there were also some soldiers maintaining order in the crowd. And some people's eyes were searching for something in the crowd. Seeing this situation, Adam felt that his chances of meeting other Phi species this time would be very low. After all, not every Phi can be like Adam, usually the same as ordinary people. Under the inspection methods of the church, it is difficult for most assimilars to conceal their abnormalities. For example, the nemesis of a werewolf is silver, and Adam's self-healing ability in his transformation state is very abnormal. After being cut with a knife, blood splashes out, and the wound has already begun to heal. But if the wound was caused by a silver weapon, not only would the self-healing ability be suppressed to a minimum, but it would also poison him. If it is a werewolf the day after tomorrow, even if it touches silver in the human state, it will burn out of the wound. Therefore, many sheriffs will bring some silver items on their bodies, which makes many werewolves know where to hide. It is estimated that there will be no Phi appearing. Adam was not too disappointed. He had almost no contact with other Phi species, and all the information came from books. In the case of insufficient strength, it is not necessarily a good thing to come into contact with other Phi species. Soon the sky darkened, and people gathered towards the entrance of the street. Under the cross of a large number of torches, Adam's face exchanged light and dark. Maybe one day he would also be put on the crucifixion and watched by others like this. Various smells were mixed at the scene, but when the man wrapped in a sack was brought up, Adam smelled a smell of herbs. Witch doctor? Adam frowned. Witch doctors are a kind of gray profession. Most of the people who work in them are human beings. They can use various strange materials to refine various magical potions, because the potion produced had a good effect. The monks of the church turned a blind eye to the existence of witch doctors. Generally speaking, only the most sinful life will be executed by fire, and the witch doctor will not be put on the fire rack, unless the witch doctor is deprived of his qualifications as a human being. The soldiers tied the suspected witch doctor to a wooden frame. A white-bearded old man in a monk's uniform stood in front of the wooden pile and began to read out the guilt of the person who was executed by fire. The sinner Buddhas, refining potions by evil means, is extremely guilty, and the church in the South City district is sentenced to fire. Burn him to death. Burn him to death. After the verdict was completed, the crowd of onlookers began to shout wildly. The people tied to the crucifix were still struggling, but some monks had already come to the edge of the high platform with torches in their hands. Adam mixed in the crowd, watching the flames beating on the torch, suppressing the strangeness in his heart, and shouting with the others. When everyone's eyes were attracted by the torches thrown out, Adam saw a person squeezed out of the crowd. The man's eyes glowed green, and in the process of rushing out, he grew black and gray hair, his mouth grew longer, and he turned into a giant humanoid wolf, breaking all his clothes. The huge palm of his hand waved away the person in front of him, and the werewolf howled and rushed to the high platform. Vaguely, Adam felt that he had been hit by some kind of impact, causing his blood to change slightly, as if he could transform at any time and howl at him. Approaching the maturity of the bloodline, has the control of the ability to transform become weaker? The werewolf's violent start frightened the onlookers around him. Adam was thinking of cooperating with the people around him to scream when he heard the white-bearded monk who had read the verdict before shouted, "Calm down." The sound is as if you heard the sound of water droplets dripping in a silent night. that sound becomes all you have. You can't help but follow the sound. The crowd that was panicked because the werewolf jumped out was instantly quieted down, and the seemingly unstoppable werewolf that pounced on the high platform had not yet touched the person tied to the crucifixion. A young monk rushed out from one side. The guard of honor sword in his hand was unsheathed with golden brilliance. And suddenly, Adam even heard the soft sound of the rules. The angle of the sword was very tricky, and the long drive pierced the werewolf's throat. A lot of blue smoke came out of the werewolf's throat. His huge palm waved twice, and as the young monk drew out the guard of honor sword, he had already fallen on the high platform. Friar Fra, that young monk was the monk who had been very optimistic about Adam before and borrowed the word of God to him. Adam really didn't expect Friar Fra to have such strength. He blinked twice, moved away from the young friar, and met the wide eyes of the werewolf corpse. Despair seemed to remain on it. At the throat wound of the corpse, a large amount of black smoke flew out, and the werewolf's corpse quickly shrank and turned back into a naked human in trousers. Seeing the appearance of that person, Adam lowered his head as if he didn't dare to look directly at the corpse, but he was covering up the corners of his mouth that couldn't help but cocked. He did hurt others before, but the despair of the other party made him seize more hope. As Adam knew before, most Phi species could not hide their abnormalities, but in the face of the church's search, the Phi species was not extinct. And naturally there was a way to escape the search. The so-called potion refined by that witch doctor should be a potion to suppress abnormalities. Adam knew the werewolf, and the other party even bought him a few pickled vegetable cakes. At that time, Adam did not realize that the other party was a werewolf. Adam has collected information from most people he can reach. This werewolf has lived in the Nanchang district for many years, and because of this, he did not choose to escape. After the witch doctor who sold the medicine to cover up the abnormality was arrested, escape, he had already adapted to life in the South City district and was completely unable to accept the escape in the future. So he was so desperate to hit the execution ground. There may be other ways to cover up the abnormality of werewolves, but that is meaningless for werewolves whose status quo of life has been broken. This time, the impact is nothing more than begging for death. Adam was happy because this was an opportunity for him. He didn't know much about the power of blood, but he was very familiar with how to cover up blood, such as some secret rituals. Those Phi species that have lost their way of concealing anomalies and are unwilling to flee must need a new umbrella. And I can be this umbrella. The fire was still held as scheduled, and the witch doctor who was covering his mouth did not disturb the bonfire party. And the aftermath of the werewolf attack was also cleared by the monk's magical skills. Adam, who was selling meatloaf, gradually moved away from the crucifix behind him. Adam had previously believed that it was not a good thing to come into contact with other Phi species prematurely, because he actually occupied a disadvantaged position in this kind of contact. After all, he is not yet an adult, and those Phi races, not to mention others, must have more experience in fighting than him. Now, after Adam has determined that some Phi species have lost the way to conceal their abnormalities, he can take the initiative in contact with other Phi species. Of course, I'm not in a hurry yet. Adam mixed in the crowd that had regained its calm, carrying a basket to sell meatloaf while thinking, if a witch doctor is caught, there will definitely be some Phi species who often go to buy medicine to reveal their identities. The church will act these days. If you contact them now, you may bring yourself in. In addition, for some hidden deep Phi species, If they are as vigilant as they are, there will definitely be spare potions. They will last longer. I just need to find them before they can't hold on. Selling meatloaf to a customer, Adam, like most people, was smiling. The reasons for laughing were different, but the joy was the same. When the bonfire on the high platform was no longer bright, Maggie had already found Adam. Today, the meatloaf was selling well. Although there were still some left, she could take it home and eat it. Lena also followed Alice, shouted happily to brother Adam, then stepped on her short legs, rushed over and hugged Adam's thigh. It seemed that she was having a great time tonight. After a while, they found Alice again, chatted about what happened at the fire today, and returned home. Adam stood in the attic, quietly completed the transformation, and then quietly listened to the surrounding movements. It is not suitable for going out tonight. The church is estimated to have prepared various traps, waiting for those 5 species that cannot be held back because of the witch doctor's arrest to show up. However, this kind of blockade should only be a matter of a few days. On the one hand, the people in the church also need to rest. It is impossible to stay and set traps every night. On the other hand, there may be some irrational beings among the different races, but after these irrational heads are delivered, the rest are smart people. Even if they are not smart, at least be cautious enough. If you want to catch these smart people, you can't solve it by staying alone. The bloodline has become more restless. After listening for a while, Adam changed back to a human state and lay down on the bed. In the werewolf state, he didn't think much, so all the information he obtained had to be carefully calculated by the human state. From half a month to about a month, the bloodline will mature. Adam was full of expectations for this. The next step is to prepare for contact with other 5 species. Stretched out his hand to caress the jagged scar under the corner of his eyes, and some long-lasting memories came to mind. That memory was not good, but it was not bad. In the next few days, the night was not quiet, and Adam felt that his blood became more restless. Through observation during the day, everything seems to have calmed down. Do you want to keep waiting? It's definitely not safe to go out now, but it was Adam who touched the scar on his face and waited for 2 more nights before choosing to go out again. The silence of the night made people feel a hint of panic. Adam looked into the distance. Except for a small amount of lights, the whole city was pitch black. Adam, who was in a werewolf state, did not hesitate in any way, and quickly moved towards Baron Manzer's mansion, and then climbed up the wall full of creepers with a light car. He planned to collect information from Baron Manzera first, and then go everywhere to find traces of other 5 species. It was only at this time that Adam's beast intuition suddenly noticed something wrong. It's like breaking into the realm of other beasts. Adam vaguely sensed through the beast's intuition that a manic, unknown fluctuation was impacting him, as if an invisible collision was taking place. His blood became restless again, and a force was triggered. It originated from blood, gushing out from all parts of the body and straight into the brain. And then everything seemed to explode, and in a trance, I saw an unknown place that seemed real and magical, like a werewolf made of black smoke. He pulled 2 scarlet eyes and rushed towards him, his figure getting bigger and bigger, as if to completely occupy Adam's sight. Adam's heart crossed, and he also rushed over. If you dare to pounce on me, I dare to fight back. Adam in the werewolf state didn't think so much, pursuing his instinctive feeling. Just a word. Adam and the black smoke werewolf sumo collided. The black smoke turned into a giant wolf spread out, and then gathered again, rotating his body to raise his huge claws, and waved it down at Adam's back. The black smoke-like body was wrapped around at the same time, as if to completely cover everything about Adam. All kinds of messy things began to impact Adam from everywhere, whispering in detail, distorted pictures, or howls of various noises. At this moment, Adam's figure suddenly faded away and disappeared into the black smoke of the werewolf. Adam only felt a pain in his brows and withdrew from the unknown place that seemed real and phantom, still lying on the wall by the window. The door at the end of the corridor over there was opened, and a strong man with long brown wavy hair and shawl, stubble on his face, and a spacious gown walked out. His brown eyes swept, as if staring at Adam through the wall. At one point, the whole person had already turned into a brown-haired werewolf, like a cannonball, pressing over with a fierce momentum. The same kind. And it is an extremely powerful kind. After sensing this, Adam followed his inner choice and jumped directly off the wall. And as soon as he sprang, he had already crossed the courtyard wall. The brown-haired werewolf came to the window, jumped and squatted directly on the windowsill. With his hands on both sides of the window, his eyes swept towards the shadow, only to see a shadow dissipate. This guy? The werewolf quickly changed his human form, jumped back into the room, pulled the belt of his shirt, and fastened his clothes again. Who is it? Baron Mansura, dressed in aristocratic costumes and somewhat bald, walked out leisurely. Just take a closer look and you will find that a somewhat complicated heraldic mark has appeared on the back of his hand. The mark is a combination of semicircle and triangle, with various symbols inside. A little guy. The strong man has no desire to chase down. That little guy has good potential. Before his bloodline awakens, he can forcibly enter the realm of perception in the collision with his perception, and he can grasp his own perception in time to retreat successfully. This kind of grasp of one's own perception is in the werewolf group. It's rare, and those masters will probably like it very much. As soon as Witch Doctor Hoda died, everyone really ran out. Baron Mansura said, dissatisfied, looking at the crushed floor of the corridor and the paw prints on the windows. But the heraldic marks in his hands did not dissipate. He looked at the strong man with condescending eyes and said, "Also, don't do it with me." "I know." The strong man scratched his cheek, glanced at the coat of arms and nodded, as if he didn't care about Baron Mansura's arrogant words. The nobles are different from their Phi, and they also gain power from their blood. But the power of the nobles is not just him, so it is even more terrifying. After 2 more turns, he made sure that no one was following him. Adam never thought about searching for other Phi species again, and went straight back to the attic. This Baron Mansura's path is a bit wild. Adam patted himself on the head with a headache. Baron Mansura not only raised a group of robbers outside the city, but also had a relationship with werewolves in Roja City. You must know that unlike other countries, as the Holy Tingyan Kingdom of the Church has great restrictions on nobles. If you dare to get involved in a close relationship with werewolves, this Baron is a bit bold. Do I still look up to myself after all? That's it. The plan is about to change. Little by little, Adam began to figure out the various relationships in the southern district of Roja City, and then sorted out his action plan. In the end, he couldn't hold on and fell asleep in a daze, shrank in the corner of the bed, and curled up. "Nesser, do you want to abandon God's favor?" The sun shone down the window to the side of the bed, and Adam woke up from his sleep, a little later than usual. What happened last night made him still have some lingering palpitations at the moment, but fortunately, it was a blessing in disguise. Adam looked at everything around him, And suddenly the sound, smell, and light seemed to explode. Everything around him was reflected in his mind, as if a certain boundary had been broken. He became extremely familiar with everything around him, and there was a feeling of being in control. Do you perceive it? Adam's state of perceiving everything did not last long, and it quickly subsided. Before last night, when he smelled a smell, he smelled a smell, and when he saw a picture, he saw a picture. Now during that period of time, all perceptions are integrated together, and they can even collide with other people's perceptions. If he failed to withdraw from the state of perception in time last night and fight hard, he would most likely be completely covered by the perception of the black smoke werewolf, and then suffer various perceptual shocks. His eyes darkened and he fainted. After taking a breath, Adam tidied up the attic, listened to the movement downstairs, took the Word of God in his hand and walked down. Friar Fra downstairs was talking to Maggie and seemed to be asking about tuition. In the Sky City behind Roja, there is the Shenhui Theological Seminary. Almost all the monks and nobles nearby graduated from this seminary, but the tuition fees are too high for ordinary civilians. Although Friar Fra is very optimistic about Adam, it is impossible to pay this sum of money for Adam. After all, he himself is not rich. What's more, Adam didn't want to go to that seminary. What did he go to? Are you going to die? Looking at Adam holding the Word of God, Fra's eyes were full of regrets. He regretted that Adam was born in the wrong era. When the seminary was not reformed in the early years, civilians could enroll as long as they passed the test and bought another copy of the Word of God. However, with the strengthening of aristocratic power, most theological schools have undergone reforms, and the threshold for entry has become higher, and it has become extremely difficult for ordinary civilians to get started. Although the monks of the seminary have received better resources as a result, and the status of the monks has become more and more distinguished, even Friar Hefla is also a beneficiary, but he still sighed a little. Friar Fra, you haven't been here for several days. Adam ran over in surprise, and then his face became full of reluctance, but he still handed out the Word of God and put it in front of Fra. I'll give it back to you. There have been a lot of things recently. Looking at Adam's performance, the young monk became more and more regretful, but he also took over the Word of God. Although he has good skills, he is still not rich in nature. Although there are reasons why he rejected some inappropriate gifts from the nobles in the city, it was only after receiving the Word of God that Fra's expression moved and he opened the book. Between them, a small piece of thin wood was sandwiched. On the wood was a picture made of charcoal, modeled on the illustration next to it. Uncle Alex can do some carpentry. This wood chip and charcoal were found in his small woodworking room. Adam is already ready to become a stepping stone for a painter these days. Did you draw this? Friar Fra was very surprised. The charcoal was too rough, and he painted on wood chips. The whole picture seemed too rudimentary, but it was not difficult to see the similarity between the picture and the illustrations in the scriptures. Adam seemed very embarrassed, so he lowered his head and stopped talking with a sigh. It seems to have succeeded. Adam knows the bargaining routine very well. When you want to make a request and are afraid that others will not agree, what should you do? First make a more excessive request, and then wait for the other party to refuse before making the original request. At this time, the chance of the other party agreeing will be greatly increased. Although the situation of Adam and Fra is somewhat different now, the truth is the same. First, Fra is optimistic about his theological talent, but he wants to fund Adam and Fra, but he doesn't have that ability. Therefore, when a slightly inferior alternative option appeared, Fra would choose compensation under the psychology of guilt, even if this option would make him slightly violate his own principles. To some extent, Adam was consuming Fra's kindness. You also have a good talent for this painting. Fra didn't hesitate to express his appreciation, pinched the Word of God in his hand, and said with some joy. After hesitating for a while, Fra said, "I know a few painters. I'll discuss with them later. Maybe I can let Adam learn something from them." "Don't hurry up, thank you, Friar Fra." While pushing her nephew, Maggie was full of joy and wanted to get some meatloaf for Fra, but Fra refused. "If it succeeds, I will come and take you there early tomorrow morning." After Fra finished speaking, he withdrew from Baku's house and whispered in a low voice, "God will care for the believers." Seeing Fra's departure, Adam grinned and said to himself in his heart, "God will not care for anyone. Only I care for myself." "Adam?" Maggie's voice made Adam turn his head and smile shyly. "It's great. Adam has a talent for painting and can get the help of Friar Fra." Maggie was very happy. After her nephew came, there was an extra mouth in the family. Although Adam is very capable of work, it is not that the more people work, the more they will earn. There is a limit to the income of a family. Adam smiled, walked into the kitchen, lifted the basket of pickled vegetable cakes, and walked out. Except for the encounter with a powerful similar kind last night, everything is still under his control. He collected a lot of information. In addition to the information of various nearby residents, the most important thing is naturally the information of the church in the Southern District. Through the purchase of materials by the purchasers of various materials in the Southern District Church, as well as the arrangements for the baptism and worship of believers, Adam analyzed the information that the Southern District Church may need to be repaired, the focus of which should be murals. He chose to become a painter as his goal at that time because of this consideration. Adam had conducted an in-depth analysis of Fra. He was of aristocratic origin, but because he was not the eldest son, he was sent a sum of money and driven out of the house when he became an adult. With that sum of money, Fra entered the seminary, and most aristocratic concubines would choose this way out. Perhaps it was in the seminary that he was influenced by some bitter monks. Fra had a strong sense of justice. He was very unhappy with the nobles' raising of the threshold of the seminary. After graduation, he did not even return to the family territory. Instead, he came to Roja. In Roja. He also rejected the wooing of nobles, and he didn't have any contacts here. Adam admired people like Fra very much, but this did not prevent Adam from taking advantage of this innocent monk, this naive, well-connected young monk. When he was unable to fund Adam to go to the seminary, he discovered that Adam had a talent for painting. So he remembered the repair of murals in the church. Adam remembered the style of Flana's sword on the night of the fire. With his identity and ability, in fact, as long as he was willing to speak, he could get a lot of benefits. According to Adam's judgment, letting Adam join the renovation of the murals as an apprentice and fight with the painter should be just within Fra's psychological bottom line. Being able to enter the church and stay there from morning to night, there is really too much intelligence information that can be collected during this period. At that time, whether it is the church to clamp down on Baron Manzer's opportunity to cross the wall, or to explore the church's defensive layout of the Roja border wall, it will allow him to take more initiative. The most important thing is that as a local church, The news is definitely the most well-informed. From here, you should be able to get some information about the mobilization of church personnel in advance. Although I have made a lot of cover-ups, one day that person will find Roja. Adam thought that after selling a piece of pickled vegetable cake, he put down the cover cloth, raised his hand to wipe the sweat from his face with the back of his hand, and gently rubbed the small scar on his face by the way. Of course, even if it fails, Adam has nothing to lose. Everything is just Fra's spontaneous behavior, and it has nothing to do with him. The only thing he is afraid of is that Fro's bottom line falls too fast, and he directly uses the relationship to send him to the seminary. Lowering the bottom line of a good person is as disgusting as falling down a dung bucket from the second floor. Adam knows this very well, but he doesn't regret it. No matter what his ideals are, what his hobbies are, and what great beliefs he has, the premise is to live. Fra walked into the church through the side door, and after nodding to the other monks, he became a little hesitant. He has never done such a thing as using his relationship to seek benefits for others. But in the end, Fra came to the painter. Adam didn't go out that night. His strength was still too bad, and he knew too little about the extraordinary. He planned to go to the church to learn more about the Fae before starting his own plan. Anyway, for Adam, he was more familiar with the methods of the church than the Fae itself. Early the next morning, Adam met Friar Fra at the door as he wished. The monk squeezed out a smile and said, "I have an agreement with the painter Alva. When you follow me to see him, he will accept you as an apprentice." "Thank you, Friar Fra." Adam was very happy. Seeing the smile on Adam's face, Fra breathed a sigh of relief. Maybe he didn't know how to work around before? Putting those thoughts aside for a while, Fra took Adam to the Southside Church. Friar Fra seems to be very busy lately. Adam is fiddling with his hair, as if to make a good impression on the teacher he is about to meet. In the end, he covered the scar under the corner of his left eye with a half-length beard. Fra might not know if he was too young, but the other monks in the Southern District Church might not know anything about it. "Well, I'm dealing with some troubles," Fra said. "Are those monsters?" Adam guided the topic. "I saw Friar Fra kill that monster with a sword that day. Now those monsters should have been killed by Friar Fra. How can it be so powerful?" Fra smiled shyly, completely devoid of the determination to stab the sword before. Fae species are not so easy to exterminate. "Adam, you still have to be careful when you see some suspicious people." Fra raised his hand and looked at his palm and said, "Those monsters are too dangerous. There are several of the most common Fae species: werewolves, ghouls, wendigo, banshees, and there are also sea monsters by the sea. Of course, in addition to these, there are other Fae species, such as vampires." Fra didn't explain in depth, but just roughly talked about the characteristics of these Fae species. One of the things that interested Adam the most was the vampire. According to some legends in his previous life, the vampire was the old enemy of the werewolf. There's also a deep relationship between the two in this world. In the beginning, vampires did not exist. The birth of vampires was the result of some human magicians studying werewolves in order to pursue a long-term life. Every pure vampire is born at the expense of a werewolf, so the two are not in harmony. Ghouls are similar to wendigo, but they cannot hide in human groups for a long time. After they reach adulthood or a certain stage of development, they must stay away from the crowd and can no longer hide their abnormalities. The banshee lives in the mountains and forests. Therefore, among the human groups, The werewolves are the most hidden and the most harmful. Fra just introduced the characteristics of common Phi species a little bit, so that Adam could be more defensive, so he didn't say much. And they had already come to the Southern District Cathedral. Walking in through the side door, Fra only felt that everyone was looking at him in surprise, which made him feel the urge to lower his head to cover his face. Too young. Adam looked curiously at the appearance of the church, caught a glimpse of Fra's embarrassed appearance, and also felt a little guilty. Perhaps Fra's bottom line will continue to decrease over time, but that is his own business. Under his own guidance, lowering a person's bottom line still makes Adam aware of the fact that he is a scum. Sure enough, the structure of the Shengyin church is the same. Adam slowly remembered the structure of the church in his heart. Although most people are generally directly called the church, there are differences between the church and the church. There's only one God in the regular church, and that is the God of creation, promise, which is the God depicted in the Word of God. It's just that the gods seen in different churches are different aspects of God. So the developed churches are different from the doctrine to the image of God. The relationship between different churches is also different. Some are more harmonious, while others are like fire and water. The churches of Shengxianian country are basically Shengyin churches that believe in Shengyin, which can be regarded as a relatively people-friendly category. After the mainland churches, the scale is relatively large. For Adam, all he had to do was to stay away from the Holy Voice Church. Of course, before that, he needed to get more things here. Adam saw a middle-aged man squatting in the corner from a distance, slowly rubbing the lines of the wall with his fingers. He was unshaven, with long dry hair tied into a simple ponytail, and a white to brown robe, but there was no odor, and he still had the colors of various pigments on his hands. Alva Latu. Fra whispered to Adam in advance, the great painter who came to Roha to settle a few years ago. Master Alva, this is Adam. After approaching, Flora introduced Adam. Friar Fra, go ahead and get busy. Just leave him here. Alva didn't let go of the work in his hands. He was still groping on the wall, tapping on the wall with his hands from time to time, listening to the sound. Then I'll go first. Adam, if you study hard, come to me if you have anything. Fra patted Adam on the shoulder, then turned and walked inside. He also had a lot of things to deal with Fra's departure. It seemed that only Adam and Alva were left in this corner, but Alva didn't mean to talk to Adam, and was still observing the wall. Adam was not idle either, and followed him to observe. The murals describe the deeds of God in the Word of God in creating the world and saving all beings. At present, these murals have faded and fallen off. This is not surprising. Although Shengyin Church has not actively hunted gray occupations, such as magicians or witch doctors over the years, it is still very repulsive. Therefore, the church's items are only of better quality at most, and there is no extraordinary power in it. The church always focuses on communication with God. As long as the communication is convenient, more magical skills can be obtained. Adam followed Alva and found that Alva's observation was very strange. Touching, staring, listening, and even leaning his nose forward to sniff. Then who? Go find who to talk to, and buy an extra bottle of spirits from the materials. Alva said blankly. Adam looked around. He was the only one, so he didn't say anything more. He walked to other places, found a passing monk, and asked who was responsible for the procurement of the church. So he went there by himself. Apprentices are actually free labor for a large period of time, and what the teacher will teach depends entirely on luck. And Adam didn't care about this either, just taking advantage of this opportunity to walk around the church and listen to some of the secrets of the church. Buyer of the church is a fat middle-aged man who is very impatient with Adam's proposal to add materials, and even reveals a kind of disgust for Adam. "Do you need spirits for painting?" It shouldn't be that the sloppy painter said casually. "You didn't hear it clearly. Go back and ask clearly before you come back." After the fat man heard that he wanted to add a bottle of spirits, he almost said that he was about to get out of here. "I confirm that I heard you right. And please ... double quotes. Adam glanced at some documents on the table and said, "Please also add this material to Brother Jim. If you have any questions, you can go to the teacher to ask." "Friar Jim, Count Lou is here." Someone knocked on the door and said, which also made the middle-aged fat man even more impatient with Adam, "You go back first. I will add materials to you later." Friar Jim looked as if he couldn't stand you, and waved his hand as if he had agreed to Adam, but found that Adam didn't move at all, still standing there. At this time, Jim took a serious look at Kia Danglai, took out one side of the file, and added a bottle of spirits to it. "Trouble, Friar Jim," Adam said with a smile, turned around and left. Back in that corner, Alva was still there. And the day after that, Adam followed Alva, watching Alva constantly measuring various parts of the church. "Who is that? Come early tomorrow." When it was getting dark, Alva turned and said to Adam, still not remembering Adam's name. "It's just that what Adam didn't expect was that when he walked through the corridor and wanted to go out through the side door, a person stopped him. The white-bearded monk who announced the punishment at the scene of the fire that night. At this time, he looked kind-hearted, beckoned to Adam, squinted his eyes and said with a smile, "Adam, right? I want to ask you something." Adam looked at the monk carefully and determined that the other party was the head monk of the Southern District Church. The structure of the Shenyang Church is not complicated. In the case of regional churches, the monks have different divisions of labor. Most of them are called monks. After that, they are rated based on factors such as merit, control of magical skills, and age of admission to the church. Although the names are all monks, the specifications of the clergy's uniforms are also different. For example, most of the newly joined monks have only one pattern on their collars, while senior monks can have 3 on their collars. Only senior monks are qualified to preside over a local church, and the monks who preside over the church are also called the chief monks, and only the chief monks can have their cuffs tattooed. The kind-hearted friar in front of him was slowly bending down, taking out the holy cake from the cupboard and putting it in front of Adam with great enthusiasm, just like the neighbor's grandfather calling Adam to eat. After a day of work, "If you are hungry, let's eat something first." Adam understood that the risk of using Friar Fra to enter the church was also shown. Although the Holy Voice Church has made many concessions over the years, due to the rise of aristocratic forces, some monks have even been corrupted by the nobles, but there are still many powerful figures inside. Adam hesitated appropriately and said timidly, "No, my uncle and aunt left me food at home." "It's okay, young people have to eat more." The friar long opened the curtains and stood by the window, looking at the scene outside the window. "Thank you, monk." Adam didn't postpone too much, picked up the holy bread and ate it in twos. "Don't worry, I still have a lot here." The monk squinted his eyes for a long time, smiled very kindly, and then said, "Fra is a young man I am very optimistic about. His soul has never been dusty, so I want to meet the person he recommends." "What kind of person is it? What kind of soul does it have?" Adam looked at the remaining holy bread on the table, as if embarrassed to get the second one. Hearing the words of the chief monk, he asked suspiciously, "Soul?" "That's right." The friar tapped on the window, turned his head to look at Adam and said, "The human soul is no different from the beginning. It's just that from birth to this world, everything that I have experienced and encountered is affecting the soul. You are studying painting with Alva. Let me use painting as an analogy. The human soul was originally an empty canvas. His experience is all kinds of pigments, and the choice for these experiences is the brush. It determines how you accept your own experience, and it also determines the appearance of your soul. Some people compose it into an epic poem, others turn it into the sun to warm others, and some people's souls are as stinking as sinking into the silt. So what about you?" The monk's long eyes seemed to be able to see through people's hearts and went straight into Adam's soul. "Adam, what will your soul be like?" I don't know." Adam lowered his head as if he didn't dare to look directly into the monk's eyes, squeezed his pants in his hand, forcibly suppressed his panic, and said in accordance with countless self-hypnosis arrangements in his mouth, "I just want to live a better life, and I don't want to run around again. Then may the glory of God bless you so that you will no longer be confused." The monk pressed his long and generous palms on Adam's head, and his voice became grand at this moment, as if countless holy bells were ringing, or countless Holy Spirit angels surrounded him, chanting hymns. Looking at Adam, who was becoming more peaceful under his palm, the friar stretched out his brows, retracted his palm, and staggered to the vicinity of the cabinet again, constantly groping inside. "Let me look for it. Last time Porto came, he brought some preserved fruit ... double quotes. The monk said bitterly, "Where did you put it?" "I remember it was here." Adam woke up in shock, his face a little embarrassed, and quickly said, "Don't take it, monk. It's getting late. I have to go back quickly ... Found it." As if discovering a great secret treasure, the monk laughed and took out a bag of preserved fruit from the cupboard. After taking a breath, he didn't care about Adam's rejection at all. He took out a big grab from it and put it in Adam's arms. "Be careful on the road. Go back early. Come here early tomorrow. That guy Alva hates people who are late." Obviously, he can't even remember the name of the person. "Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about him ... double quotes. The long-winded friar did not have the majesty to lead the upper echelons of the church. Adam could only hold the preserved fruit, and after thanking him, he hurriedly ran home. After Adam left, the chief monk took out a piece of holy bread, shredded it bit by bit and put it in his mouth, lowering his head as if thinking about something. A monk walked in from outside the door and asked softly about the situation. He is an ambitious person, and he is indeed suspected of using Friar Fra. The monk sighed and said, "Then I will stop him outside the door tomorrow." The monk frowned and said uncomfortably, "No need, Rob, no need." The elder monk shook his head. Everyone has their own way to go. Ambition is not necessarily a bad thing. What matters is the choice in their hearts. Fra needs to grow up and Adam needs salvation. I believe they are all good children who can master the light and make the soul in the glory of God become bright, almost exposed. Adam knew that it would not be a simple role to be the chief monk of a certain district in a border city like Roja, but he didn't expect the other party to be so terrifying. If it weren't for Adam's own special nature, even other purebred werewolves might have been unable to bear to transform on the spot, and then they were slapped to death with a palm dot in that guy's old body. There's a terrifying holy power. This level of holy power is not common. Adam only feels that the scar on his face is hot, and a pain deep into the bone marrow makes him almost unable to restrain his yelling out loud. Progress must be accelerated. Adam knows one thing very well. That is, his identity is not without flaws. The birthplace of Adam Boku is some distance from Roha, but as long as someone checks it and takes some time, it can still be found out that he is not the real Adam. But also be careful not to arouse suspicion anymore. This time, with the help of Friar Fra, entering the church has already made the friar feel that Adam has a problem and take a test. If he reveals abnormalities again, I am afraid that the other party will investigate him upside down. In the TV series that I watched in my previous life, the kind of spy was suspected countless times, and the suspicion was cleared countless times. In the end, the thing that was trusted by the other party did not exist. The more high-ranking people, the less they believed in coincidences. Once the suspicion is cleared, it will indeed make the other party feel that it is a misunderstanding and become trusting of you. But if you are suspected twice or 3 times, your lurking career should be over. My soul will never stay here. Even if there is no such glory as God, I will wear a crown for it and make it extremely noble. Thinking of the words of the chief monk, Adam sensed the werewolf blood in his body that the church called the blood of sign. But there was nothing strange on his face. Before it was completely dark, Adam returned to Cooper's house, put the preserved fruit in a jar, and called Lena to eat it, messing up the little girl's hair again and then carefully tying it up again. Adam's heart gradually calmed down. I began to review the harvest of going to church today from the bottom of my heart. I was a little careless. I was too high-minded about my hiding ability. If I prepared earlier, I could deal with today's situation more steadily. There are places where Friar Jim can be used, and there is that Earl Lou. When I was eavesdropping on Baron Mansra's mansion, I heard information about him. We need to have a deeper understanding of different races so that it is convenient to find them later and conquer them. Adam calculated little by little. The power I have is really too little. This is my disadvantage. My advantage lies in my concealment and the methods I have mastered to cover up blood abnormalities. Now it can be added that I have lurked in the Southern District Church. So, the next step is to take advantage of the advantage to gain more initiative, and then to make up for your own disadvantage. Of course, there is one biggest problem: time. Adam smiled and pinched Lena's face, and after feeding another piece of preserved fruit, he decisively put the lid of the jar away. Seeing that Lena's greedy saliva was about to flow out, he took out another one and let Lena eat slowly. My arrangement at the beginning. I don't know how long I can mislead them. Once they find Roha, with what they know about me, they should be able to find me soon. Thinking of this, Adam looked at the night sky outside through the window, and a little crescent moon was slowly rising. The second sun is walking on the rich ground. Bending over is the ears of wheat hanging from the wheat, and he can pick sweet fruits with his hand. There are countless cattle and sheep in the valley. The shepherd's father warned him not to go to the cave, otherwise it would bring suffering to the ground. The second son didn't know what the suffering was. Day after day, he couldn't hide his curiosity. After going to the cave, the suffering came to the ground. The demon spirit who can't see the light in the dark said to people, "If you release the suffering, the sin brought about by the suffering will be attached to you. Only by becoming another appearance can you escape the sin." The second son listened to the words of the demon spirit and changed into another appearance, making this appearance ugly and attracting sin. so that he could keep his true appearance away from that sin. The Word of God, the age of divine revelation. Adam was eating pickled vegetable cakes, leaning against the bookshelf, looking at another book of the Word of God. And Master Alva in the distance was sleeping in a chair, snoring. Today, after groping for the church all morning, Adam was allowed to read some books here at noon. I have to say that the universal education of Shengyin Church is doing a good job. Every once in a while, monks will go to every household to explain the Word of God to them and teach children to recognize words by the way. It's just that perhaps it's because of the increase in the threshold of the seminary. There are fewer and fewer monks willing to explain in this way. For those monks, it takes a lot of money to enter the seminary to learn the knowledge. Why teach it to others for free, even if it's fur? They feel at a loss. What's more, after the threshold is raised, those who are able to enter the seminary are either wealthy businessmen or nobles. And these two types of people are not very popular with civilians, and their essence determines their attitude toward civilians. Adam put down the book in his hand, and the passage in the book can be described as explaining the origin of the werewolves, change into another appearance to bear the sin. So the Phi is considered to be inherently guilty. So regardless of the external performance of the Phi, as long as the monks find the Phi, most of them choose to kill it and return it to the dust. To exist is to have sin. In the afternoon, Alva's surveying work seemed to be at the end, and Adam followed him and noticed another thing. Because of the renovation work of the church, the baptism and worship of some believers were placed in the side hall. Adam observed that one believer was different, similar to ordinary believers. That believer's way of worship is extremely formal. He enters from the main entrance, purifies his hands, face, and ears, then sits quietly and purifies his heart, then kneels and sits in front of the statue, covering his eyes with both hands, and listening carefully to the holy sound. After doing all this, he covered his ears, recited the Word of God, walked towards the statue, and went out through the door under the statue. The Qibla ceremony was no different, but Adam found that while doing all this, the believers smelled of sweat, and the smell of sweat was mixed with some familiar smells. Is it a Phi who endured the pain to worship? Adam knew very well what the result of Phi worship would be. It was that the whole body was resisting, as if a rebel army had appeared in his body and rioted everywhere, which would bring strong pain to the Phi. However, this kind of pain can be adapted as long as the number of times is enough. Then it is estimated that the whole body hurts and sweats, and it will not faint or show more abnormalities. It's a pity that the smell of sweat of the man still exposed him. It had the same smell as the witch doctor and the werewolf that day. It is estimated that he also took the potion to cover up his abnormality because of fear. Adam analyzed the opponent's psychology. Phi is considered to be a natural sinner, and its existence alone is sinful. In the long struggle, it is not that no one among the different races has given up resistance. They admit their sins and are willing to start atoning for their sins, following the Word of God. He became a hard-working monk, longing for God's forgiveness day after day. These Phi species were recognized by some human monks and established the Church of God. Tears. It's just that the relationship between the Church of God's tears and the major churches is not very good, and even some churches do not recognize it as an orthodox church and scoff at it as a cult. That Phi of believer is obviously not the kind of devout believer who is truly willing to believe in God and dedicate everything to God. The reason why he came to worship in front of the statue now is only because of his fear of death. With the arrest of the witch doctor, the Fae, who had no means of concealment, became more and more fearful. But unlike the werewolf who attacked the execution ground, his faith was completely broken, and he was bent on death. Therefore, while this person came to the church to worship in fear, he did not stop taking the potion. This kind of people have no faith in nature. Everything they believe in belongs to themselves, and the purpose is to serve them. Adam remembered the smell of that person, and as long as you hold the lifeblood of this person, you can control this person. And as long as I open this gap, use him as a signboard, and condense the power that belongs to me, I can conquer more Fae species. There are a lot of people, and the crowd is not just talking. When you have more people, even if other people are stronger than you in personal strength, they still dare not do it. A force will be formed invisibly to limit the opponent, and then become a member of this force. Of course, it does not rule out the possibility of having a reckless husband, regardless of anything. It is to use personal strength to win or lose. So you need a sense of mystery to set off in the early stage, to hide your true face, and to maximize other people's fear of you. Just need to be careful. Although it is a great opportunity, Adam does not intend to act rashly. The attitude of the Shenyan Church towards alien races is to kill them all. But there are always some people who will be special cases, so it is not ruled out that the alien race in front of you is another temptation of the church. And even if it's not a temptation, you have to figure out for yourself whether the people in the church found this person abnormal. If you can rely on the werewolf's innate keen sense of smell to discover that this person is a different species, then the church may also have discovered the strange appearance of this worshiper from other aspects. If that were the case, he would expose himself instead. You can't rush it. Adam said to himself. But what he really needs most now is time. After Alva observed the last wall that needed to be painted, he announced a holiday and then asked Adam to go wherever he could. Although Alva didn't show it, Adam actually understood that this teacher actually had an opinion on him. For example, people who can't look at themselves can never remember their names. Adam is one of the people who has not been remembered by his name. Even if he has been together for 2 days, Alva has ordered him to do a lot of things, but he still hasn't really called out Adam's name once. The person he recognizes is Fra. Adam didn't feel insulted or anything about this. He just used dirty methods to seek this opportunity. Adam had a clear understanding of this, but he would never regret or feel uneasy about it. That night, Adam once again became a werewolf, sprang out of the attic, pursuing the information collected during the day, and began to look for his own goal. When the man arrived at the church in the afternoon, the smell of sweat on his body, in addition to the potion, also had the smell of a poisonous mist area. Judging from the clothes, the family conditions were not very good. This can also be judged from the economic situation of another werewolf. The potion is not cheap. Adam thought of the werewolf who hit the execution ground. That person was still working hard, but he had never been rich and had no money to marry a wife. Before, there was gossip in the neighborhood that the person was gambling. In fact, most of that person's money was used to buy medicine. From this point of analogy, it can also be confirmed from the side that the economic situation of the Fae worshipper today is not very good. Although he didn't want to go to the slums that he called the poisonous fog zone, Adam set foot here again. A very strong smell drifted across the block. Adam stood at the entrance of the block and raised his head as if he could see a huge yellow-green monster lying in the air, looking at him with a grin. Public health in this era is simply terrible. Many people think that water is unclean, so they have hardly taken a bath in their lives. It's better in the civilian area. There are also some public toilets built by Shenzhen country. People in the slums can't control so many people, and their urine are dumped directly on the streets. Mixed with all kinds of horse dung, it is compacted by the wheels and becomes a new layer of road. Therefore, Adam called the slums poisonous fog areas. Adam resisted the discomfort and walked into the block, almost picking up the place to get off his feet. Although they are all made of feces accumulation, there is also a difference between dry and wet. After entering the slums, follow-up tracking became difficult. After all, the smell was too strong, and Adam felt that his nose was about to break if he wanted to desperately pursue the smell of the potion here. Fortunately, Adam was not clueless. Some of the characteristics of that person had already been remembered by Adam, especially when he was clean. People in this era believed that water was unclean, rarely washed their hands, and rarely drank water. If you want to replenish water, drink wine if you have the conditions, beer if you don't have the conditions, or all kinds of soups. There are multiple reasons for this. One of the main reasons is because of public health issues. The water here, except for a small number of wells, the water quality is actually not good, and people in this era have not formed the habit of boiling water and drinking boiling water. If you really drink raw water, you can't escape a serious illness. After the concept of water as an unclean thing is formed, most people are unwilling to wash their hands. So under normal circumstances, you rarely see clean hands, although the people of the Boku family didn't say much about Adam's frequent cleansing of his body. They thought it was a strange problem. I can only say that I'm still not cruel. Enough. Double quotes. Adam was a bit self-deprecating. He was really cruel, not only to others, but also to himself. In order not to arouse suspicion, he could eat the holy bread as if nothing had happened and endure the pain, so that he would not reveal flaws in eating the holy bread in front of the chief monk. But he still couldn't accept that he was like falling into a dung pit, smelly all over. On the contrary, most of the church monks are clean, and they use holy water. Holy water is also divided into several types. The simplest one is the clean water extracted from the underground well of the church bell tower. The bells of the Holy Sound Church may be one of the few items in the church that are related to the supernatural, so these waters are also a little bit sacred. Power, believers come to worship, and the water used in rituals such as hand cleansing is this type of holy water. When the fire worshipper washed his hands, he pulled out a wooden thorn and some sawdust from his nails. The wooden thorn was very new, and it didn't look like he had come across any wood products. Generally speaking, people who have so many wood thorns and sawdust in their fingernails are either carpenters or lumberjacks. Adam was biased towards the latter, because there was moss-stained soil on the edge of the opponent's shoes. Of course, all this was just speculation. Along the way, Adam didn't dare to let go of his sense of smell with all his strength, and approached the direction of the slum close to the forest. After wandering quietly for a few laps, he finally found a new clue. It's not the smell, it's the sound. In the silent night, Adam heard the voice coming from a remote cabin near the forest, like a crazy beast, trying to bark loudly, but under the action of fear, suppressing his emotions and not daring to really make a sound. He could only roar in a low voice. In Adam's perception of letting go, the opponent was like a powder keg that exploded at one point. As he approached, Adam also heard what the opponent was whispering. The answer, blood. Blood made Adam frown. As far as he knew, werewolves did not have pica. Among most species, only vampires had a special preference for blood. A pure vampire is an existence that is transformed by a magician who studies werewolves and borrows a certain ritual to transform himself. But if you think about it, you also know that this one inside is definitely not a pure vampire. Some werewolves can spread wolf poison through biting to transform ordinary people into non-purebred werewolves. Vampires transformed from werewolves seem to have similar abilities. They can transform ordinary people into non-pure vampires in some way, which can also be called blood slaves. There is nothing wrong with this being a vampire. The problem is how he was transformed into a blood slave. Could it be that pure vampires once appeared in Roja? Or is this person transformed in other places and fled to Roja by himself? Adam couldn't help but start thinking. Adam would not want to kill a vampire when he saw it, as is generally rumored. For Adam, this is not good, and he basically can't do things that are not good. But Adam had to consider what kind of threat that pure vampire would pose to him if he was still in Roja. A pure vampire must be a magician, and he is also a magician who has in-depth research on werewolves. Adam will not hate vampires for no reason, but he cannot guarantee that vampires will not catch him on a whim. Experiment. Roja's situation is getting more and more complicated. Adam frowned, but decided to go according to plan. Quietly came to the door of the room. But Adam did not intend to go in, but entered a state of perception, and began to perceive everything around him in all directions. The blood slave inside fell into an endless desire for blood. That was his instinct to eat. At this moment, there was only one other instinct that could suppress this instinct. The instinct to survive. Just as Adam analyzed, Adele was frightened. Since the witch doctor was caught and put on the crucifixion, he has fallen into deep fear. Even because of fear, he did something stupid. Adam did not disturb the blood slave in that state, but quietly came to the side of the house and used his claws to pry open the lock of the cellar, covering his mouth and nose. Adam gradually came to the cellar. Although he had dim vision when he turned into a werewolf, the cellar was too dark to see clearly. Following the smell of the oil lamp was lit, and the entire cellar came into his eyes. Although he had expected it a long time ago, Adam still felt slightly uncomfortable with the tragedy in the basement. Several wooden pillars support the cellar, and there are also some wooden cabinets. Some bottles can be seen in them. Some are empty, while some are left. Unsurprisingly, those are potions, but the potion is now not the most eye-catching thing, but a corpse that has been smelly and distorted. From the shackles and ropes, the strangulation marks on the pillars, and the feces piled up in the corners, it is not difficult to analyze what happened here. Although vampires and blood slaves do not have the problem of being crazy about the moon like werewolves, they also have their own problem, a morbid thirst for blood. In Roja, even in slums, if someone is often attacked and sucked for blood, it will attract the investigation of church monks. On the contrary, if a person goes missing, it is difficult to attract the attention of the church, because for slums, disappearances are too common. To imprison a person in a cellar and become a stable source of blood supply is not surprising. For a cautious blood slave, is there an uncontrollable anger because of fear? Adam expressed a moment of silence for the passing of this person, and it can be seen from his twisted body that he suffered unimaginable torture even after death. Didn't you wake up very much before you died? Adam looked at some nicks on the wooden pillar at the beginning to record something. and then only messy bite marks were left, judging that the person being held here had gone crazy before he died. Don't imagine how elegant vampires are. They are all fey in nature. In some cases, they are more like a beast than a werewolf, and the blood slaves infected by them are even more so. Adam made no secret of his dislike for the blood slave. Adam knew very well that he was a scumbag, but this blood slave was just rubbish that was not even as good as a scumbag. I really am a scumbag. Adam recognized himself again. He didn't turn around to give death to the idea of humanoid garbage, but tapped on the wooden cabinet on one side a few times, and took out a book from a mezzanine. After looking through it for a while, Adam put it away, popped out his paws, and started writing on the cabinet. After finishing writing the remarks he had prepared earlier, Adam hesitated for a while, and then took a sentence. Bury the body quickly. You don't want to go to the church to worship and be discovered by the monks because of the smell of corpses. After all this, Adam pinched out the oil lamp with his hand and quickly left the slum with the book. He came to a clean river, put the book on the shore, and jumped directly into the river to wash his body. Everything about the blood slave made him sick. Looking at the moon hanging high in the sky, Adam resisted the urge to roar, picked up the book, and disappeared into the night. Although his aversion to the blood slave reached its extreme, Adam was still ready to use him. Adam never thought he was a good person. He buried the corpses of others at will, then encroached on the identity of the other party, enjoyed the love of the other party's relatives, and lowered the bottom line of a good person, just to give himself a chance. The difference between him and that human trash is that he clearly knows that what he does is dirty and ugly, and he will not do those dirty things for things that are not related to his interests. If he hadn't been reincarnated as a fey, maybe he really became a monk at this moment, enjoying the worship of the people somewhere, fighting the evil fey. It's a pity that this is the reality, and Adam has no ability to change all this. Putting the book obtained from the blood slave under the bed and hiding it, Adam did not rush to watch, but immediately took a rest. Even if he is a werewolf, he still needs to rest. Not to mention that he used all his strength to perceive the state before, and his spirit is a bit not very good now. The next day, Alva finally started. He asked Adam to shovel off a piece of the surface of the wall. After cleaning up the wall, he asked him to start mixing the materials according to the ratio. According to the different pigments of the materials used, they were divided into several types, and then evenly applied in layers on the wall. Murals are divided into painting type and painting craft type. What Alva uses is the painting craft type, which can be subdivided into some types. Strictly speaking, this can be regarded as a combination of carving and painting. When the materials were coated and began to solidify gradually, Alva began to do it, using different carving knives to peel off the excess materials. It didn't take long for a layered painting to appear in front of Adam. So the material levels were different and the colors were different, almost finished portraying. Alva took out some colored stones, shells, and precious stones from the material box on one side and set them in various places, and then took out a fine carving knife to play with the details little by little. Adam followed behind, constantly helping to replace the tools, then cleaning up the scraped waste materials, and adjusting the pigments from time to time to make up the colors. By the evening, part of the mural was almost presented in front of Adam. The colors are bright, the layers are clear, and the texture is rich. The characters on it are extremely vivid, and even the skin seems to be real. Alva is definitely a master figure in this regard, and Adam is not exactly a handyman here. At least the ratio of those materials allows him to learn a lot if he is going to be a painter. Clean up. After speaking, Alva waved his hand, regardless of the tools on the ground, and walked outside dangling. Adam lowered his head and looked at one of the layers of the toolbox, where there were still a lot of useless gems. He smiled and shook his head, took out a piece of wood chip, scraped the remaining material layer by layer on the wood chip, then packed up the tools, and went back with the wood chip. Adam understands that the details determine success or failure. Since he decided to use the painter as a cover, he needs to do some things that the painter's apprentice should do. Although gems are good, he doesn't think he can really survive, nor can it bring him real benefits. That being the case, then those gems are just like roadside stones, and they are not important to Adam. Walking on the road, Adam lowered his head and fiddled with the wood chips in his hand, using branches or stones without a carving knife. He found that this is a good way to exercise perception, the material and level of the material, the color change, and the speed at which the material solidifies, etc. Adam felt that Alva's perceptual ability must be very strong. Before returning to Baku's house, Adam saw a stray cat on the side of the road. He squatted down and beckoned to it, as if sensing the affinity emanating from Adam. The stray cat came to Adam after hesitating for a moment, putting the remaining small half of the pickled vegetable cake in the palm of his hand and feeding it to the stray cat. Adam rubbed the little guy's scalp with a nice smile. Seeing that the sun was about to go down, Adam stood up, returned to Baku's house, greeted Alice and Maggie, teased little Lena, and then returned to the attic, his heart full of various calculations. The church, the nobles, the garrison, the Phi. All kinds of information collected on weekdays flowed in Adam's heart, and then he thought about how to deal with various situations, telling himself over and over again in his heart, and giving himself hints so that he could make the right decision. The first time he encountered those things, reaction. Finally, he turned into a werewolf and began to read the book he got from the blood slave, Through the Moonlight of the previous month. This is a messy manuscript book, even mixed with some diaries. Sure enough, normal people who write diaries. Adam sat on the bed, flipping through the manuscript with one hand. The owner of the book is named Adele Lean. Unsurprisingly, it is the name of that disgusting humanoid garbage. The handwriting is very scribbled. There are still a lot of typos, and some of the content does not match the preface. During the period, there were some diaries with the wrong grammar, which was really a headache, but Adam still knew a lot of information from it. Although Adele is a native of Roha, as a free citizen when he was young, he also had the so-called ambition to go out and become a great adventurer. Then in a lame adventure, Adele became a prisoner of a vampire, and then was transformed into a blood slave and became half of the opponent's assistant. This manuscript is some piecemeal information recorded during his time as an assistant. Adele was undoubtedly lucky. The vampire later met a certain powerful ascetic monk, and he successfully escaped without becoming the vampire's next experiment. After that, Adele returned to Roha, but did not dare to enter the city. After squatting in the forest for a few months, he finally got in touch with some Phi species in Roha City and met the witch Dr. Hoda. Only then did he officially return to Roha City to live. However, because of the failed adventure, he was penniless, and the expensive price of the potion, he could only move to the slums, which was also easy for him to prey on. This information is good news for Adam. At least the pure vampire is not in ROJ Adatas. For other information, Adam also gained a lot. The distinction between werewolves is whether they are purebred, While the distinction between vampires is whether they are pure, the difference is that the purebred of werewolves is distinguished by bloodline inheritance, while the purity of vampires depends on whether the ritual is correct. It can be learned from the records that the pure vampire was still conducting bloodline experiments in the future. He continued to create blood slaves, and then through various experiments, he wanted to transform blood slaves into pure vampires, not pure blood slaves named vampires. In fact, it is a non-pure product of blood slaves. Why did this vampire go to the kingdom of Shengxianian to do experiments? Adam frowned. Shengxianian Kingdom is the main venue of Shengxian Church. He wanted to run because he was born here and couldn't help it. What about that vampire? Adam, who had no answer, could only let go of this question and continue to draw knowledge from it. What was most helpful to Adam was undoubtedly the vampire's experiment with werewolf blood. After the werewolf reaches adulthood, his bloodline matures, and he will awaken. At that moment, the power of the bloodline will completely bloom and show miraculous power, tracing back the ancestors, tracing back the past, mining personal talents, and forming an awakening ability that belongs to oneself. Some have more perverted self-healing abilities, some have extremely contagious wolf venom, and others have more wonderful abilities. Non-purebred werewolves are formed because they are infected. So when the bloodline awakens, it lacks the link of tracing back to the ancestors, and the awakening ability that is often excavated is relatively weak. It is worth noting that the closer you get to the full moon night, the faster the bloodline matures, and at the moment of awakening, even a purebred werewolf, it is difficult to suppress the restlessness of the bloodline and become manic. Seeing this, Adam frowned and raised his head to look at the sky through the skylight. It was already the last lunar month, and it would be a full moon night in 7 or 8 days. If Adele's record is not wrong, he will indeed have a bloodline awakening during that time. Is it uncontrollably manic? This needs to be prepared early. Adam frowned, tracing back the ancestors, tracing back the past, and tapping personal talents. Adam looked at his white hair and hairy claws. He and his biological father had never met before, and he didn't know much about his father's family. So what about tracing the past and mining talents? My past and my talents.